everyone. It's your girl Miracle Sims, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Mr. Colt Charlebois. And friends, if you are on a journey or getting ready to embark on a journey when it comes to abstinence, then this is an episode that you don't want to miss. Stay tuned.
Miracle Sims, let's go.
I'm not the type of girl that goes.
Yeah, it's a miracle, baby. Shot chill, Miracle Sims, let's go.
You wishing I would have a one night affair.
Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I am here with Colt Charlebois. Did I do it?
Oh, come on. You did great there.
Awesome. Listen, I love that. I love that. I'm just gonna be giggling the rest of the time now. But yes, Mr. Charlebois, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I mean, I get to speak to a live miracle today, so I know this is going to be a good conversation.
Yes. Well, welcome to the GSL Talk Show. Glad to have you here. I know you have a powerful testimony to share, so look, I'm excited to get into it. But I mean, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, and just get us going. Just tell us a little about yourself.
Well, hey, I just want to start by saying I love what you're doing. Serving the audience with this type of conversation, I think it's so important. And most pastors don't have the courage to do this from the pulpit. So it's very difficult stuff to talk about. Some of these things, they can be touchy. We don't want to scare away a flock necessarily. But this is the real truth. You want to live in the purity and the power of our living God. You've got to know these stuff. So a little about me. Gosh, where do you begin in a story like this? Currently a husband, a father. These are things that I hold with great respect and honor because for most of my life, I was a single man. I got married at the age of 38. And I remember a mentor of mine along my spiritual walk, he got married at 36 and I was in my late 20s. And I look up to him and go, not going to take me that long. No way I'm waiting until 36 to get married. And of course, the Lord has a sense of humor and said, oh, yeah, how's 38 for you, my boy? But I am just blessed and thankful that I got to experience marriage, but more importantly, got to experience it after he had done a deep and thorough work in my heart first, because it set us up for a really phenomenal marriage. And yes, love to talk more about that with you.
Yes, yeah, I'm all ears, man. I'm definitely all ears, and thank you for that confirmation. It's like right on time for me right now because we're going through some stuff on YouTube where people coming for the name of the channel. I'm like, man, this is my testimony in a title. Like, why y'all coming for me? Like, so it's a whole thing right now. So thank you for that confirmation because I do think these conversations are very important. From both sides of the coin, because I know you have a very unique part of your testimony. But well, not it shouldn't be unique, but that's another
Right.
thing. We'll talk about that. But anywho, but with that being said, like, so from your perspective as well as like the perspective of those that fall short and have to, be born again and all that different type of stuff. So we try to be, a platform where people could come and just share and be open, honest, and transparent. And so thank you for that confirmation. But I don't want to look. Let me let you share with us what you got going on, Mr. Colt.
I think really I was asking the Lord what today should be about. And I feel like he wanted me to share with your audience specifically about abstinence. And I'd be happy to talk about things that have going on. But most importantly, this journey that we've had, this journey that I've had in understanding abstinence and the value, the strength of it. It started because my definition of masculinity was totally skewed growing up. And I don't know if you're going to have any listeners that have had a similar perspective on masculinity, but I think growing up, I had a role model. Like I needed to be like James Bond, or, I was in the 90s. So Zach Morris was pretty cool when I was a kid. I don't know how old your audience is, but if I could be somewhere like James Bond or Zach Morris, then I'll have made it as a man, because they have all the cool toys. They got the money, they get the girl, and so somewhere in our journey, we gotta follow. act like this if we're going to have made it, right?
Mm.
And some of the earlier male role models, I would say, weren't the best in character, but I had some uncles that when I was about 13 years old, I remember my uncle saying to me, Colt, are you getting any? And every time I saw him, like literally, hey, you getting any yet? Good looking boy like you getting any yet? And so it sounds pretty
Wow.
intense from the believer side, but as a 13-year-old boy, it's like I don't really know what he's referring to as any. I think I got a pretty strong speculation, but whatever it is, I got to figure out how to get it because he's an older man in my life and I look up to him. I think he's pretty cool. And so I better figure out how to do this. Right. And just this longing for affirmation. I didn't realize that a lot of it stemmed from fatherlessness in my home growing up. I saw my dad every second weekend. I love my dad, spent a lot of time with him, but the absence of him created a longing for validation. And
Mm.
so I enter high school. My friends now become the most important thing in the world to me. How do I get their approval? Well,
Mm.
teenage guys only interested in a few different things, right? Cool adventures, cool stuff, and getting the attention of women. And
Mhm.
so my whole mantra is set up. I got to find out how to invite friends that are females to the parties that we're going to, have a great story to tell the guys, this kind of thing. And then at some point, when you exit high school, it's like, okay, now it's on. Now you got to be a man and you got to figure out how to make some money. Because if you don't, all of this falls apart. So I
Mm.
have this construct within me that, of course, led to a lot of promiscuity, a lot of partying, a lot of needing a story to tell,
Mm.
and a lot of brokenness inside of me. Um, what didn't help this equation is that all my attempts to be that man, to be the cool guy, uh, they ended really poorly. First three girls I fell madly head over heels for, all chose another man over me.
Mhm.
Um, first of which was one of my girlfriends. I love deeply. Like when you're wanting to be affirmed by the opposite sex and you meet someone who says you are my king, and
Mm.
she feels every longing you've ever had and then wakes up one day and says, yeah, not man enough anymore, and choose someone else. There's something that's just shattered in you because I've given
Mhm.
her permission to validate me. Now she's devalidating me. And
Mm.
so I'm jumping around a little bit in the story, but all the point is I get to my 20s and I'm very broken relationally.
Mm.
Like I've had several girls that I love deeply cheat on me. I'm not holding up this image of man. I'm broke and I'm trying to become a millionaire. And nothing I do miracle works. Like it's all falling apart. And
Mhm.
so I get into house flipping and I start renovating my home. Think I'm going to make some money and start working my way up in the real estate game. That falls through. Before I know it, I'm about 28 years old and I owe over $100,000. And I had to move out of my apartment and go knocking at my friend's door. Now, this friend is the friend I bought the first house with, and he was the guy who said, I just want to work my job for 40 years and retire. And I was always in his face going, you got to do more, man. You got to be better. You could own your own business. You could be you're still young, pushing him. Now I'm showing up at his door saying, can I live in your basement? So
Mm.
just to paint the picture, I'm his realtor who sold him the house that he and his wife live in, and she's about to have a baby. Okay. I'm the one trying to project this image of success to everyone else, and here I am asking to just lay low in his house for a while. And so it was a
Mm.
really difficult time, a humbling time,
Mm.
and a time that a lot of our friends were asking questions. Why are you living in his basement? I thought you were this big success. But it was in that place that I met the Lord.
Mm.
And my mother had been so concerned about me, because of course she sees me going through all this not only heartbreak, but difficulty as a man, lack of joy, lack of purpose. And she sees a show. So, well, I got to back up. I said to her one day in a conversation, Mom, you taught me to pray as a kid, but is there really a God?
Mm.
And she says, in her most honest answer, now this is the woman who has an answer for everything. Miracle, you have a mother like that?
Yes,
You
sir.
got, some of us have mothers like that, right? You got an answer for everything. My mother, in the most honest moment ever, said, I don't know. I don't
Mm.
know if there's really a God. I was taught to pray when I was a kid, and I taught you to do the same.
Mm.
And that began a journey for her where she went, started connecting with friends at work. They invite her to a church. She gets born again. She's radically on fire for God, like in an obnoxious, zealous way. Like
Wow.
for outsiders, we're like, what happened? Um, then I'm having a conversation with my best friend. He moves to Alabama at the time. We were both Canadians. He's visiting home, and we say, I said to him, looking up at the stars one night, we were having we're hanging out in my parents' hot tub. Okay, two dudes in a hot tub. Just we're close pals, having deep conversations in the hot
Okay.
tub. Looking
Okay.
up at the stars, I said, "You think all this is an accident?" He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "The stars, the sun, the ecosystems, how it all comes together. Is this an accident or is this by design?" And he says, "Man, I don't know." And he goes home. He's been dating a girl down there at the time, and they're married now. But he starts having conversations with her about, is there a God? She
Mm.
invites him to church. He gets radically born again. He's on fire for God. So I'm watching these primary role models in my life. My father, something similar happens to him. He was an alcoholic, got saved, becomes born again. And all of a sudden, I'm in this place where I need something. I need help because nothing I do works. And so my mother, in desperation, she's watching this. You ever hear Sid Roth? It's Supernatural. This
It sounds familiar. It's a show, right?
It's a TV show, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sid Roth, he's this wildly charismatic guy who's very flamboyant in his charisma, and so he
Mm.
interviews new authors and stuff. And on his show, it's on 700 Club or something like that. But anyways, he's interviewing this new author, real estate guy who's losing everything. My
Mm.
mom sees the show, buys me the book. I'm reading the book in my friend's basement, looking at the concrete walls, going like, is this the whole total sum of my life is in cardboard boxes on the concrete wall? And I'm thinking, there's nothing of value in those boxes. There's nothing of value in me. I
Mm.
read this book, and he starts talking about a prayer of surrender. And he said, like, he laid down on his office floor and he says this prayer of surrender. I'm looking around this basement going, I got nothing to lose. So I throw the book on the bed and I lay down. I think the most authentic prayer is to get as close to the floor as possible. And to be honest, I don't know which cheek is holier. So I'm praying on both sides of my face. Like as if the administration of heaven is going to be like, not right, sir, rejected, So I'm praying so earnestly, so sincerely. And my roommate, the owner of the home, he used to go out for a cigarette at night. I think he's going to walk by the window and think I'm dead in here, but I got to do it. And so I just lay down, I'm praying this prayer, and I said, God, are you for real? Do you really exist? And if you really exist, are you really in control of my life? Because if you are, you have to have a better plan than this. Everything I touch turns to something that looks like rust. All right. Not the Midas touch, the reverse Midas touch. And in that prayer, I just felt it let go. It wasn't like a major piece or flood of emotions, but I felt like, okay, I've handed it off to him. I got to trust him now. And in the several weeks to follow, there were wild things that started to come, but the small steps were, reading some of the things about this book, forgiveness. I had to make a step towards forgiving those who had hurt me, those girlfriends who cheated on me, business deals that went awry, clients that I felt betrayed by. I had to forgive myself, which was part of the harder and longer journey for some of the really vile things that I'd done out of selfish ambition, women that I had, used, manipulated, given the hopes that we might have a relationship, but shown no interest afterwards. Some of the things in my walk, including an abortion, some of these things having to forgive myself for were a difficult journey, asking and receiving God's love through those in my brokenness. And in that, God began to move. And I say all this because one of the most important steps he called me to, the two areas of my life that were so damaged were, one, my finances. I owed over $100,000 and I didn't have the confidence to go to work. And at the time, I'm a real estate agent. That means I'm commission only. If you don't have confidence, you don't get paid. And I just couldn't muster up in me to say, hey, I'm the best option for you to buy or sell a house, because I didn't think I was the best option to do anything well in life. So that was the first one. The second was my sexuality. This was a very distorted lens. I didn't trust my impulses. I didn't trust who I was attracted to, why I was attracted to them. My motives were very off. And I just said, Lord, what does your word say about both these things?
Mm.
And I mean, you're from Georgia. You must know Andy Stanley.
That name sounds familiar, but
Andy Stanley is a pastor at a church called North Point, and
oh yeah.
Charles Stanley's son, Charles Stanley, is a
Okay,
well-known
okay.
preacher. So, anyways, he did this series called "The New Rules of Love, Sex, and Dating." Now, if you
Mm.
go back in the YouTube archives, you'll see it. It's aged a little bit. It's about 10 years ago, at least. And in this, he starts describing this person. And all the description was all me. I mean, if you've been looking to consume women, if you're looking for your own validation in the opposite sex, all this kind of stuff, you need to take a year off dating.
Mm.
And so, Miracle, you ever taking time off dating?
Yes, I did. Yep.
All right.
Mhm.
So I don't know what age you did this at, but for me, I'm in my late 20s. I'm seeing all
22.
my friends get married. They're all on kid number one, kid number two. And I'm like, a year,
I bet.
Lord, that's for somebody else. Okay. I said, but I agree. I need some time off dating. And so
Mm.
I said, I'll take 3 months. 3 months,
Disobedient.
partial obedience. I don't know if it's full obedience, but so I said, I'll take 3 months. Yes, disobedient. And at the end of 3 months, you know what happened? I said, Lord, I'm going to need another 3 months
Uh-huh. See?
because it had just opened up Pandora's box on how much I depended on not even the physical contact with the opposite sex, but how much it depended on just having someone that I could call, a female friend that would just listen to me and hear me. This emotional dependency, emotional consumption. I'm guessing you have some audience members. Maybe you've even experienced this with people you've interacted with or dated, but this drawing from a well emotionally,
Mm.
this, and it's like I'm asking for things that she shouldn't be giving me.
Mhm.
This emotional dependence because I'm giving her an experience that she wants in a relationship, but I'm not offering her one. And so I'm giving her hopes in a lot of those circumstances, not all of them, but in some of those friendships, she had a hope that it would grow to more, and I knew that. And I knew she'd always take my call. And I'll tell you, that's wrong. That's off. It's
Mm.
inappropriate in God's eyes. And so he started to reveal some of this to me in those moments of absence, in those spaces, in those quiet nights alone. Oh, those are some dark nights of the soul. Let me tell you, when you got no one to call and you just got to
Mm.
face the temptations, the
Mhm.
desires inside of you.
Mhm.
So, anyways, to make a long story short, 3 month intervals, about a year and a half later of 3 month intervals.
Mhm.
Every
Mhm.
3 months, me going back for the Lord, say, Lord, I think I need another 3 months. I
Mm.
finally came to a place where I think I could probably offer something in a relationship rather than go into one needing to take.
Mm.
And that was a long and difficult journey. Yeah, I'll pause there because I've been kind of going on in the story a lot. What do you hear? What do you think people want to know more of, and how much time we got?
Oh man. Well, I'll usually say 30 minutes to an hour or however long the people talk. Like some people just you know what I mean, we have good conversations, so it's fine. Um Man, okay, so much there. I can definitely relate in a lot of ways. I definitely had my come to Jesus moment. You asked briefly, like, have I done this? That? I'm like, yep, yep. I remember in my 20s too, and being like, Lord, why? And what? And then he's like, showing me in the mirror, it's you. I'm ready for marriage now. No, you're not. Like, and all those different type of things. So I get it. I'm right there with you, and I'm glad that you went through your journey because, like you said, I mean, it sounds like on the other side you can obviously you've have grown and you were ready, right, for marriage and things like that, even though it took longer than you thought it would, but at the same time, right on time for the Lord because, you know, that's how he is, right? But I mean, I think your story, your testimony is definitely resonating. I know you wanted to kind of focus on the abstinence side of the conversation, which I think is very interesting because a lot of people they tend to misuse the word celibacy,
Mm.
right? When they really mean abstinence and things of that nature. And so, it sounds like you knew the difference between the two or things like that. Like when did God call you on that side to say, okay, And now as you're sacrificing, dating and X, Y, and Z, that means like be abstinent as well, or or how did that look for you? Like, did you automatically make that decision to just, okay, this I'm not dating and I'm not having sex either, or did you kind of have to grow to that understanding?
Yeah, I'm gonna it's uncomfortable, but we'll get
Oh,
real. Is it okay if
oh
we get a
my!
little real?
If you don't want it,
Ugh. I believe it there'll be some freedom in it for someone.
yes, I believe so.
Yes, I understood celibacy as not, as a vow for life, and abstinence as a temporary thing, and abstaining until I've given myself to a woman for life, right? In vow, in marriage, in all things.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was the decision, and then there was, you know, the sanctification, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the working out of all the fleshly desires.
Mm-hmm.
So in hearing this audio for the first time, there was this kind of taunting nudge that said, "You got to do this, right? You need to stop dating. You need to stop." At first, it was sleeping around. Um, Part of this came as a result of the season just preceding it. There was one night I felt like I needed to stop drinking, and I had a season where, like, several week period where I hadn't had a drink, and this was before I came to faith. This is kind of leading up to it. There was a lot of things I was trying to do on my own to correct my behavior and correct the life I had been living, discipline myself in many respects. And I said poor decisions were made when I drank alcohol, and I wouldn't have called myself an alcoholic, but it turns out at least once or twice a week I needed to just blow some steam off. So call it what you will. A couple weeks go by, I haven't had a drink, and then it's my I go to a wedding. I don't want to reveal too much information. Close parties might
Mm-hmm.
put pieces together, but I go to a wedding, and there's a couple people there, and it's kind of casual. It's not a big wedding, but there's a few drinks. I say, "Oh, I'll just have one drink." Before I know it, we're out after the wedding, a group of us, and there's plenty of drinks and dancing, and then a little while later, I'm I'm having sex with a girl in the back of her car. Okay. And it's practically daylight, and we're in my neighborhood. And it's like, normally in the past, that would have been something that I really celebrated. That would have been like a triumphant win as a man, having conquered and felt good about receiving the attention, affection, being known it. But there's a pair of shoes on the floor of the car. And I said to her, "Whose shoes are those?" They're male shoes, like, not, like an adult male. And she said, "Oh, they're my teenage sons." And this girl was a couple years older than me, but not many. And I said, "Oh," I said, "Are you married?" And she said, "No, but I live common law." And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "You have someone at home right now?" And she's like, "Yeah, but we haven't been getting along." And there's nothing against her, but it was just this moment, like, you homewrecker. Like, there's some
Mm-hmm.
man on the other side of the city that is wondering, where is my wife? And she's with you. This is who you've become. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the voice inside of my head, Miracle. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I like, I swear off at that point. I'm like, I don't want to sleep with anybody anymore. Like, I don't know how I became this man that's just
Mm-hmm.
consuming at a rate where it's like, I don't even know what I'm consuming or who I'm consuming at this point. And it was all permission based. And, in our world today, the swipe left, swipe right, everybody's up for the same game. So it's not, it's nothing that isn't agreed upon or anything like that. But at the core, it's like, I know that my appetite is outpacing my character. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that happens. And then there was someone just before that every time I felt low in myself, I would go to this other town and hang out with some friends, and I'd hook up with this lady. At the end of the night, we wouldn't even spend time together. I'd literally knock on her doorbell at 1 or 2 in the morning. And there was one night she didn't wake up. I remember throwing rocks at her window, like this level of desperation that I got to just be affirmed.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after that car incident, I get a call from that other lady who I'd been engaging with periodically, sleeping with, I'll be frank. And she said she says, Colt, I think I'm pregnant. And
Mm,
go on the defense. Can't be me. I'm safe. Pop, 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 just not giving her a second. And I said, must have been somebody else you're with, just painting this poor character. And she said, Colt, you're the only one. You're the only one I could be with. And my heart sank because I could hear the sincerity in her voice, even though I was attacking her. And I didn't know how to react. And long story short, she said, I'm going to get an abortion if you don't want to be together. And I'm like, that's on you. That's your call. That's your body. That's your life. Trying to mitigate the destruction, the damage I had caused.
mm.
And I don't think I've ever been this real on a podcast before, just for the record. I'm like,
Sounds
get off
good,
this call and
man.
become undone in a second, but I pray that God uses it
Good.
in some way. I know that there's other people that are in these places, and
Yeah.
I talk at depth about this in my book as well. So it's not like I'm afraid to share it, but it's certainly a
Mhm.
different way when you're on recording, right?
Well, I'm honored first, and I want to thank you for your transparency because yeah, there a lot of what you're saying, people are definitely going through. I mean, Wedding Crashers, that movie. There wasn't that
Yeah.
movie, and it's like the first scene of it is just them conquesting women the whole
Yeah.
time and going like crashing people's weddings, and it's an idea that's pushed right that this type of thing is okay, but the Bible tells us right that this lifestyle or all these choices or whatever the case may be, it does lead towards death. And so unfortunately, I mean, yes, you mentioned, the abortion, so that is a death that it led towards. But you also talked about you're dying on the inside,
That's
right?
right.
You're dying, you're not even recognizing yourself and things of that nature. And so I appreciate you, sharing that because again, people uh, I think every level of your testimony people probably can resonate with. And especially in this world where all of that stuff is pushed as okay and good and whatnot. We mentioned abortion on the channel a few times, and there was one time we planned a big panel discussion, um, and only one guy came, but it was awesome to get his perspective, and he shared about his situation as well. And I don't think people are listening to the men's side of the conversation, and they are pushing it's your body, your choice, and things of that nature. Obviously I have my opinions on that. I'm like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like I'm not my mother, you know what I mean? And she carried me, that type of thing. But anyway, I mean, if you want to share your perspective of that now, I mean, we kind of got a glimpse of what you felt about that then, but now that you've come to Christ and things like
Yeah.
that.
I'll pick up on what you're sharing. You're saying it's kind of pushed. I would say it's culturally celebrated. And maybe in this conversation, maybe for your audience, maybe we're preaching to the choir a little bit, but maybe there's someone at an extension of your audience that say, hey, they need to hear this audio. That can
Mhm,
encourage them to pass it on to a friend that's going through something similar, living in a certain lifestyle they feel stuck in because culture has deemed it good. you know hey, you're
mhm,
sleeping with lots of women, good. You're the man, good. But on the inside, I deal with people in my profession because I'm a professional coach, both business coach and life coach. I
mhm,
don't think the two can be separated. But I have clients that earn hundreds of thousands. I have clients that earn millions. And some of the conversation we have is how insecure and how unvalid they feel as a man.
mhm,
And it's like, how you've got everything you want. You've got a beautiful family, you've got a wife who loves you,
mhm,
children, and you've got, I mean, any vacation you could have, any toy you'd want. But they're like, I am so empty on the inside. And that's a lot of the professional work that I'm doing is helping them stand in a true image that their creator gave them,
mhm,
right? Helping them build business strategies around what's really important, measuring the things that are really of value, the true riches of life, the things that will last for eternity, helping them build a mission around those things and
mhm,
walk in alignment with God's calling in their life. And so
mhm,
these are all hard won lessons to get to those places, but God, through some of this, has formed a character and an understanding of who He is that has given me resolve. That I'm not looking for outside things to say, hey, yeah, you're pretty good, Colt. Give yourself a pat on the back. You did that, or you did this. If it wasn't women, it was chasing dollars, it was chasing accolades and accomplishments. So I'll jump back into the story just to kind of tell you how it went from there. But place of desperation, I'm having trouble saying no to females that, because the moment you put up a boundary and you say, I don't want to do this, well, doesn't the enemy come and tempt you with that?
yes, you do.
And so, I mean, it's like I've seen some obvious ones where I'm not, and then literally the next day I got a call from someone who has always wanted to date, and hey, would you
Mm.
hang out tonight? You're like, too obvious, you know. And so, long story short, leading up to this season, where get the call, she's going to have an abortion. I think that's on you. I want to do the right thing, so I say, listen, I'll go with you. That's my like posture of saying, okay, you need to man up here and do the right thing. I'm going to go with her to the clinic. I thought that would be helpful, and man, oof, I think it was important for me. We went there and we sat in the chair, and I'm just like white as a ghost staring at the wall. I just remember there being this poster on the wall about getting the flu shot or something like that, and just sitting in this clinic and just staring at this poster like numb. And she's quite at peace, quite calm, and is a really wonderful, wonderful woman. Um, a lot of strong character. I give her a lot of compliment for what we had gone through and how she responded as a result of it all. The doctor brings her in, and I said, I can stand up, and she's like, it's okay, I can go and talk to him alone. And I say, okay, very thankful that I don't have to, be part of this discussion. I'm sitting in the waiting room and just white as a ghost. They come back out a few minutes later. He turns to me and looks at me. He says, this is your fault, isn't it? And I'm like, what? Like, that's not supposed to happen in this professional environment. He says, this is your doing. You did this, didn't you? And she's like right away to the defense. He's just my friend. Leave him alone. He's here to support me. But he could tell by the expression of my face that, I was caught. And like the judgment, that the persecution I felt, I'm not saying any of this to say he was in the wrong there. I feel like God was just helping me experience the weight of my sin so that there could be apt correction.
Mhm.
And I'm thankful for all of it. And it was brutal, brutal. I was a shell of a man after that. I left that meeting and I couldn't even drive. My parents came to pick us both up and dropped us off. And
Mm.
so just rattled to the core. And, when you start to, shortly after that, I get this invitation to church, and we don't have a long time to go into that, but it came through me being on a dating site. It's a whole wild other story, but, I get this invitation to church, and God starts correcting this place, and He starts showing me about purity and about abstinence. And so it's one thing to make a decision, but all of this had occurred, and then I start going to church probably October, November, December, really, getting involved with some others my age that are trying to walk out purity and forming deep relationships. New Year's Eve rolls around. I haven't, I wouldn't say I hadn't completely been sober, but drinks here and there, but it wasn't partying anymore. And
Mhm.
New Year's Eve comes around, and I was always known to throw a big party. And so, anyways, I did. And I'm telling myself, I'll throw the party, but I'm not going to drink. I'll only have one or two drinks. And of course, like always, just gets carried away. I find myself at 6 a.m. hooking up with this girl
Mm.
amongst another couple that's hooking up beside us. Like it was really just, you know, like the furthest thing from intimacy and what sex was designed for,
Mm.
And I'm like, how can I not say no to this? How do I keep coming back to this well? And that's when, you know, even afterwards, the following day, I felt so low about myself. There was a girl at the church who liked me, and she just said, "Hey, what are you doing New Year's Day? Did you want to hang out, go skating, or something like that?" And I just said, I said, I'm feeling kind of tired. I said, why don't, if you want to hang out and come to my place and watch a movie or whatever. And she's like, great, maybe he likes me. She comes over. I know she likes me. I feel so horrible about myself. What do you think I do next? So at this point, thank God I didn't sleep with her. But this is the state I was in. And I get to this place where we start making out and inappropriately and just here I am. I'm like, I don't want to be with this girl. And like, I'm just so desperate for attention and affection that I don't know how to shut this off. And so God started showing me after I made that decision that month by month, it's like, not only can you not date, but you can't drink alcohol. Not only can you not drink alcohol, but you can't be alone one-on-one with a girl, even at church in conversations. You can't lead her on. And it took months to me to reveal that. and multiple falls, not just with women, but if I could be candid, with masturbation, with watching explicit things. It took me a long time to really draw the line and know, like, hey, that means no friendships that are of the opposite sex, because they're misleading. You're trying to consume them emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
It meant not watching R-rated movies, not listening to graphic um, music, even sexual music, like, where I basically made this list where every single thing that led to a fall, where it led to impure thoughts, that led to self gratification. And I just made a list, and I just started xing all of them out of my life, out of frustration, or desperation, out of like late nights of tension, sexual tension, needing, like. And so if there's men that listen to this, like, this is a real place. And I admit some women experience this level of tension because of what we've been fed by culture. And the Bible talks about this sin against ourselves and sexual sin. Flee sexual immorality, because the sin against your own body, your own temple. And if anybody's had to, I want to say, it's like a recovery program, because you feel like an addict, like where your skin is crawling. If anybody's had that level of tension inside, they understand this. They understand the sin against their own body, because their body is now rebelling and saying, I need that. I want that. I am dependent on that. And so what I heard someone say just yesterday, actually, we get together as a group of men, and we had one gentleman in from this amazing organization. I'm going to get you the name of it. Restored Ministries. He said, let your sex drive point you towards intimacy with Jesus. And I was like, man, I wish I knew that back then. He said, every time you get that wild temptation that you don't think you can resist, let that be the reason you go to Jesus. Rewire yourself to say, oh my gosh, I need to consume it. No, Lord, you are enough for me. You say that you can satisfy my mind, my body, my soul. You are enough for me. You can fill every longing, every need, every piece of loneliness that I have. You can fill all that. You are the sufficiency for my complete being on this side of eternity and the next. And he said, let this be the thing that points you towards Christ. And so I didn't have that kind of knowledge and posture, but one thing I did do is, it's going to sound freakishly weird for some people, but I started to live in this understanding that God sees all and he's with you always. So guess what? In those moments where I fell to masturbation, I say, Lord, I know you're here, and I know I have lost this battle, but I know I'm going to win the war with you. Would you forgive me? And I still have tears in my eyes today. It's been, gosh, I can't even tell you, 6 years, 7 years since I've even masturbated, since I've watched anything explicit. Like, purity is, I have conquered that mountain in Christ. And I've learned that I'm not ever going to be fully free of it unless I stay with him every single day. So I know how to live in victory in that battle. And there is hope that people that don't think there's victory there. But that was my prayer. And it's still very emotional for me today to think back to those moments and think of how vulnerable I had to get before God for his power to be made full in me. I'll pause there just to catch my own breath, but anything,
like I said, I've been in those places as well. And I want to just kind of touch on how difficult this sex conversation can be. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, sex is this beautiful thing that God created, and it's not bad. You know what I'm saying? It's not wrong to desire, the opposite sex or anything like
That's right.
that. But at the same time, there's these stipulations on it that we battle with, right? When it's supposed to be, who it's supposed to be with. We're fighting against the Lord on all of that, right? When at the same time it's a natural thing as well. So then I know I myself is still kind of wonder sometimes, even in my marriage, I'm like, okay, sometimes I feel like, well, maybe I'm desiring it too much. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm not supposed to be desiring it this way, and different things like that, because it could be just that back and forth thing that I think that yeah, the enemy tries to use to get in our heads. So then when we do fall short, it's like, and look what you did, or whatever.
That's right.
But then at the same time, it's like, but Lord, you created this to be, I have freedom in you, and then I'm with my husband, and so what's wrong with the this and the that, and so I definitely have a heart for single people because I've been there too, and it was a struggle going through my journey as well. Like I said, very similar to yours. I had to, have come to Jesus moments about different things that I was doing, yeah,
Yeah.
including masturbating and all that, and that was hard because it was like, I tell my one of the testimonies all the time that something that happened to me that there was one day that was very, or one evening, whenever it was, and I was fighting not to, do it again and stuff. And I was like, but that was all I wanted to do. And I'm like, if I just do it, I go to sleep or whatever.
That's
And
right.
I'm like, no,
Yeah.
let me just, no, I'm going to be strong. And I ended up crying about it. And I'm like, and now when I think back on it, it's like, man, you cried about not being able to do that, but at the same time, it's like, it's so real because you just want whatever you want in that moment. And then it's like, so I can't have sex. I can't have a friend with benefits. I can't, so it's like all these things you can't do. So it's like, well, what can I do? So
Yeah.
it can be very frustrating, and it can be one of those things where, it's like you said, though, the Bible tells us that, we're sinning against ourselves when we are, I guess doing things outside of God's will. But at the same time, it's still a natural desire. And so it's finding that balance and being like, well, Lord, which, when does it not be, when is it beyond the natural desire? And
That's
so,
right.
yeah, this is
You
a
know, you said it
sexy
earlier,
conversation,
as that
man.
there's a way that is right to a man, but in the end
Hmm.
leads to death.
Yeah.
And I can contest. So, as promiscuous as my lifestyle had been, I have friends that were far worse. I think they had just a lot more confidence, and
Hmm.
didn't need alcohol as much as I did, um, to get to those places. But I'll just say, like, I have friends that have been with hundreds of partners.
Hmm.
And from a spiritual level, on this side of the equation, we know that's dramatically damaging to
Hmm.
someone's soul
Yeah.
because they have so many soul ties that they've united with all kinds of different people, and they have a really difficult road. I had a difficult road, but they have an even steeper mountain to climb when it comes to being okay with one partner.
Mm.
Not just being okay, but actually seeing it as greater than a variety. And so when you've hardwired yourself for variety, much like what porn does,
Hmm.
right? It's like, hey, variety and aggressiveness and like all of this stuff that isn't really, true intimacy
Hmm.
has become what we think we need. And ultimately, you brought up a good point about just this conversation inside of marriage too.
Hmm.
And there's unique scriptures. People have a lot of trouble with these scriptures of like the man is the authority over his wife, and the wife should submit to her husband. And some men have used it. I heard a story of a man who used this to tell his wife, "You need to have sex with me more often." The Bible says, "I'm your authority." And it's like, whew, how to never have sex again with your wife, right there. He could write a book on that one, I think.
Look, don't
tell,
get me
tell
started
your
because
woman
then
you
I'm like,
have
well,
to. The
what about
Bible
the
says.
woman's side then? Because it said your body is mine as well. So what we doing? you know, there's all
You know,
kinds of battles out here.
I would point to Philippians, I think it's chapter 2, where it says, "In humility, treat others more important than yourself."
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're holding this posture, especially for our spouse, hey, your needs are more important than my needs. And then we take and we look at Christ, who is the true authority over all of us.
Mm-hmm.
How did he serve us? Sorry, I'll say that differently. How did he lead? He
Mm-hmm.
came to serve us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, men, if you're the authority in your house spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
what's your role? Right before it says, "Wives, submit to your husband," it says, "Men, love your wives as Christ loved the church." What did Christ do for the church? He
Mm-hmm.
died for us.
Mm-hmm.
Men, are you dying to your temptations? Are you dying to your needs? Are you dying to lift up your bride?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of men that say, "My wife doesn't respect me. My wife doesn't want to follow me. I've broken her trust. I can't lead in my house." I'll tell you, you start living in this model of submission, of not submission. That's a confusing word, of a servant posture where you're lifting up your wife's needs ahead of yours. She'll want to follow you everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
A good
Like,
one.
wouldn't she trust you? You've got
Yeah.
my needs first. Of course I'm gonna trust. Of course I'll follow you. That will
Mhm.
start to repair some of the fractures you've made in the relationship, and
Mhm.
repenting to her and to others, say, "I wanna be a good husband. I wanna lead well in our family, and I've lost your trust. Would you give me another shot at this? I think if I ask Jesus every day for the strength to do it right, he might help me get a little better at this."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so ultimately with sex and our the enemy doesn't create anything. And so the Lord created sex. And we
Amen.
know that, but the
Mhm.
enemy perverts everything and distorts our understanding of it.
That's
And
it.
so when we have these hyper fixations on sex, we've made it our God.
Mm.
And we know in Corinthians that it talks about, our battle is not against flesh and blood, right? And we think of
Mhm.
flesh like, hey, I need sex. Like this, what's the term they have for this now? Just like basically that it is this human need, this
Mhm.
understanding. Like, are you sexually compatible? Like, this is the most obscure thing. Uh, there was a gentleman sharing about a study on this. He Googled being sexually compatible and this idea of finding a partner that likes as much sex in the way you like to have sex in the same way you do. And
Mm.
this whole understanding is like right away, we know men and women are very different in this construction of so like who is actually sexually compatible and at what season are they okay, we were sexually compatible when we met, but then we had a child and I'm still recovering. The woman might say, I'm still recovering from that. And the man said, we're not compatible anymore. The highest chance of adultery? Do you know when the highest percentage of adultery is?
Mm. I believe you're gonna tell us what is it?
You're
We're
gonna
gonna be
think this is
disappointed.
terrible. Men are human, or terrible humans, but the highest chance of adultery is typically when a female is pregnant.
Mm.
And you like, that's despicable. Like, how could a man ever cheat on his woman when she's about to conceive a child for him?
Man,
But
and then the crazy thing, well, at least from I only have one child thus far, so we're gonna see what the Lord do whenever it happens again. But all I know was during that time, I wanted all the sex, and I was like so frustrated because my husband was scared to do anything. And so it's like, go to your woman; she probably wants exactly what you want.
I
But
would say the hormone shift is different for all women.
well,
But
everybody,
that
you're right. So maybe it's just me. But I was like,
but here's what happens. So I can promise you, regardless of the appetite during that for intimacy,
mhm,
I'll guarantee you during pregnancy your needs were a lot higher. There
mhm,
like physically there is a huge demand on your body to produce a life, like develop a life, to host a life and the creation of life. Like it's taken all your resources,
mhm,
right? For most women, it's like the most difficult thing they'll ever encounter in life. And so all of their energy and the focus goes onto themselves and nurturing this child. And
mhm,
so that sometimes for the first time in their relationship, the man is like, what about me? What about me? Like she doesn't ask me how I'm doing anymore at the end of the day. So, look, this conversation is about far more than just sex. How am
mhm,
I doing at the end of the day? She doesn't care about me. She's not looking out for me. She can't even make the food anymore. Like whatever the expectations or standards were of the marriage
mhm,
or of that relationship for that matter, the man is often no longer getting it. And if he's at an emotional deficit and he's been dependent on the well of his bride to be the sustenance of his life, that's been the exchange that they've lived in, then he's going to have to look somewhere else. And if someone else starts paying attention to him, he's like, oh, this is what I've needed. I must have married the wrong woman. Right.
mhm,
And this is what happens. This is how the enemy distorts and perverts our understanding of marriage.
mhm,
Whereas when we see the greatest value of everything to do is be serving one another, lifting others up. And now, again, in a Christian context, Christian dialogue church, you've been in church your life. This makes total sense to you. And we're preaching in the choir. But for some of us who were not raised in that dimension, this is absolutely alien talk. Like it's way out there, man, way out there that you
mhm,
would abstain from sex, that
mhm,
you would until marriage, that you would want to, serve your wife. You would be an authority over your wife. And that in itself is difficult for culture. But when you see the beauty of it from this posture of love, it is revolutionary. So
good stuff. Look, all right, look, Mr. Charlebois. Look, coming with all the good wisdom today. Look, the marriage wisdom, the single wisdom. So, I mean, look, I would love to hear way more about this, but I don't know if you want to get into, all the transitions because I love to hear people's love stories and all that type of stuff. Or you just might have to come back. Whatever, feel free. You're always welcome. But yeah, I definitely want to make sure you hit your points of what you want to share
Mm.
today with the people because yeah, I do think the abstinence conversation is very important. Because in my humble opinion, based on Bible, all single people are either called to one of those. It's either celibacy or abstinence. That
Amen.
you know, and then depending on your journey, that depends on where obviously celibacy is a lifelong commitment. Abstinence is for that time until marriage. And I think again, if someone is desiring marriage and things of that nature, then you're more than likely called to
Absolutely.
abstinence. Um, that's just me and my humble opinions and things like that. And I know we had to come to understanding these things, but I want to help other people understand these things. Coming into this, especially maybe let's say if they're young or something like that, and you are a virgin or whatever the case may be. Like I think it's such a beautiful thing. Like I've heard of couples that don't even kiss until they're married. When one lady I had met back in my 20s back then was saying that she was saving that for marriage, and I was like, I don't even, like you said, foreign talk. I'm like, what? You've never kissed? Like, you know what I mean? And so, but what a beautiful thing, you know what I'm saying? Like to just think about, like, man, that must have been a beautiful thing for her and her husband to share. Um, and so if people can have that restraint, we could definitely have, restraint with sex. And I think it's definitely important to do so.
Oh
Um,
man, it makes
but
me
I
laugh.
mean,
I just think about my relationship with Amanda, my bride,
oh,
and so first of all, I'll just say there's a couple points I do want to make. One of them, I would have never entered this. I probably would have never walked in the church had I known God was calling me to 10 years of abstinence. Okay. Like, I chose in my late 20s. I didn't get married till 38. 10 years of
yeah.
abstinence was what he had in store for me. His plans for me. I don't even pray for God. What is your plan for me? You don't want to know. Now I pray. I don't want to know your plans for me, God, because even if they sound great, I try and do them in my own effort. I call it the Abraham effect. I
Mm,
get after it. Like, Lord, let's make this happen. And
mm-hmm.
so now I'm at the result. Lord, what's next? That's kind of my question.
Me too. I'm there
What's
too.
next?
And
So
it's freeing though too to be that way because
yeah,
you're like, okay, Lord, whatever you want to do, but
yeah.
it can take
Right.
a while to get there, right?
Yes, yes, the illusion of control we like to have. So I this journey, as you know, I had commitment issues 3 months at a time. So committing to celibacy certainly wasn't to the cards. But I've always had it in my heart that his plan for me was to be married. That's why I found it so confusing because I was serving at the church. There was lots going on. Had I met Amanda even 1 year prior, okay, so at year 9, I'm telling you, Miracle, we would not have the marriage we had today.
Mm,
If by some stroke of miracle in itself that we cross paths and we're attracted to each other at year 9 of my abstinence,
mm-hmm,
there would have been, I could point to all the conflict that would have arose because of even what God did in that last year of working on my heart.
mm,
And she's someone who just loves margin and space. And I was someone who just hurry was my God. Like more, do more, do more. In fact, I'll
mm,
share a little bit more. If I have a book coming out. It's called Never Enough, and I go deep into these stories about this journey that I shared, kind of snippets with you on. I would say this to your audience: if you're in the single side of things and you're saying, "Is it ever going to happen?" Don't compromise.
mm,
My position on this is don't compromise. And part of that compromise is don't go looking,
mm,
right? Start to deal with the sin that's inside of you and only worry about that.
mm,
Flee from sexual immorality until it's totally eradicated from your thought process, from your mind. And I'm even including those that, if you're anything like me, you maybe even popped into your church on a Sunday or you go to a new church on a Sunday. Wonder if my spouse is in here, Lord. And you're looking around at all the pretty faces, and you're saying, "I wonder if she or he is in here today, God.
mhm,
Would you
mhm,
would you?" And I submit it to you, Lord. If she's in here, would you come and would you introduce us in some divine way? But I'm going to go shake everybody's hands at the end of the day. And like
mhm,
that's the heart. If that's your heart, you're off. Like you're
mhm,
not submitted to God. And I
mm,
had to start praying a prayer and say, Lord, I'm only here for a short time, and if singleness is what you've called me to, I'm all in. I'm going to be
Mhm.
able to minister to way more people. I'm going to be
Mhm.
able to do your work. I'm going to be able to serve more in a greater capacity single. So I don't believe that's your heart, but if it is, I'm all in. And I had to pray that prayer for well over a year before I believed it, and
Mm.
really got into a position where like, okay, I'm actually, I'm done. I don't care. I'm
Mhm.
yours, Lord, married, unmarried, I'm yours.
Yeah.
And that was what built the foundation for what we have. We have an incredible marriage. We've never had an argument. There's been tense moments, and listen,
Mhm.
we're both not fiery persons. So certainly, I don't want to say that that's every. It's not the equation, but for us, it shows me that I have, through Christ, through my posture of Him, we
Mhm.
have been able to maintain a testimony of honoring one another in our words, in our physical actions, respectful to one another, and we admire one another. We hold that posture, and we've had moments of tension where we've had to walk away. And by the grace of God, I've been able to keep that testimony for. We've been married 4 years now, but certainly more challenges come with different seasons. So that's my word. Don't compromise.
Mhm.
When the Bible says flee from sexual immorality, cut all that junk out of your life.
Yeah.
Let Him renew your mind and soul by meditating on His word day and night. Read the word of God. Get around people that are pursuing Him with passion and fervence. And when you see others that are compromising, just stay away from them if it influences you. Or speak correction lovingly. Encourage them. Hey, God's calling you higher than that. They'll move away on their own if they don't want to live at a higher standard. So it's not easy. And I get, even to this day, I'm on my knees every single day, just saying, Lord, I need your strength this day. And it's not because of sexual immorality anymore. It's the next thing, right? Whatever the next thing.
Mhm.
Right now, we've been handed a bunch of debt unexpectedly. I've had
Mm.
very successful career stages in my life. I paid off all the debt. That was a miracle testimony in itself, how God walked me through that season of financial freedom, and
Mhm.
then how I stumbled back into it, not by decisions I made,
Mm.
believing that I'm following God's will. And I feel like He's just fathering me up through this next challenge. It's not a character defect. It's not a misstep. It's just like, no, I'm going to invite you back into the wound. We're going to go through these things. We're going to go back to the wound now. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you, Miracle, I am so calm in most areas of my life. And right now, I fall apart when I get a message from the bookkeeper. There's like a PTSD about taxes for me. It's unexplainable. Like, I need some deep healing around taxes. It sounds ridiculous, but there's like a stress response that goes off because I never seem to have the thing organized properly. I'm always missing a document. I don't remember what happened 3 months ago. Anyways, I
Mhm.
digress. We're all a work in progress. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, we can have victory. And I've had enough to know that God's in it.
Amen. Amen. Look, I get it, man. We all got our things. Look, I guess my PTSD type of thing is critiques. Because I had an
Mm,
ex the guy right before my husband. He loved me, but he everything was wrong with me. And he let me know. And that's
wow.
like having someone critique you almost a year or so uh, about everything. It just made me so now any type of feedback, I'm like, why are you attacking me? Things like
Mm,
that. So we got our stuff, man. But like you said, I mean, we're all a work in progress. And just because, you conquered the 10 years of abstinence, right? And,
amen.
I call my journey the cultivation period. I got through that. But like you said, as long as we're living, man, we're working to be more like Christ every day. And
Amen.
so there's still growing seasons on my end, right? There's still more I guess you say like going back to the womb, or I would say cultivation periods that are going to be happening throughout the rest of our life. Because again, the goal is to be like Jesus, right? And so until
Amen.
then, there's more stuff to work on and more stuff to do.
Amen. Yeah, we're incomplete beings.
Mhm.
Can I, we're gonna probably just wrap here, but can I share with you
Yeah,
my favorite prayer as it
sure.
relates to these emotional deficits we find ourselves in?
Yes, sir. Please.
I yeah, I'll just pray. I'll pray it over us, but where I use it most is when I'm really busy. That's when I find I am the most triggered by things. So
Mhm.
when I had the biggest fall in my journey of abstinence, I had years of purity, and then
Mhm.
I fell in a way that was like, wow, like not only with a female, like just alcohol, female, like just after years of
Mhm.
purity, I met with my mentor and I said, how can, he's like a spiritual father to me. And I said, how could this happen after all these years?
Yeah.
And he just said, "Well, brother," he said, "what's your schedule been like?" And those words rocked me because I had taken 5 trips in 5 weeks. And I
Mm,
was like, my soul was just like, just, there was no peace. There was no rest. There was no like, my pace was so off that like my soul, my fleshly cravings, it just started to ramp up. So there is this relationship between our busyness, our
mhm,
inability to rest and rest in God, have true Sabbath,
mhm,
our inability to hand things back to Him,
yeah,
and our temptation and our emotional response to things, our emotional triggers, our offenses. There's a real correlation there that I'd encourage everybody to evaluate. Hey, when I
mm,
feel most attacked, and for yourself, when I feel most attacked, what's my schedule like? What's my business? What expectations have I put on Miracle
mm,
this week?
mhm,
So,
yeah,
anyways, I share that to invite you into this prayer.
yeah,
Heavenly Father, would you be Lord of my emotions? Father, they are trying to control everything I do right now, including the way I respond to loved ones. Lord, my emotions are suggesting that I'm not good enough, that I'm not enough, that I'm not worthy, and I know that's not true in your word. So, Father, I lift up this feeling of being attacked. I lift up this feeling of loneliness, the feeling of betrayal, the feeling of offense. I lift it up to you, God, before your throne. I hold that thought captive before you and ask it to be obedient to your word, Lord. Your word said that I'm made whole in your image, that you love me, that you chose me, you created me, you grafted me into your heavenly family. Father, would you be Lord over this emotion? Would it be subject to you? And would I walk in what is true? In your name, Jesus. Amen.
amen, amen. Ooh,
When
I,
I have the conscious awareness to pray that prayer, things go a little better. So I just wanted to share it with anybody that it might
yeah,
benefit. Lord of my emotions.
amen. I appreciate that. That's good. Like, I, I know they're gonna be like, and here she go. Basically, every time I have a conversation with somebody, it'll hit home for me, like whatever I'm going through right now. You know what I mean? And then I know the shows come out in the future, and then they're gonna hit home at that point too. But I just find it interesting every time. It's just like, so yeah, yeah. I think again, even with the things I've been kind of fretting about, I think I told you, I can't remember where we recording when I told you, but stuff we've been going through online with our channel growing, but then we got all these extra people and they're like judging me, judging the channel, why we named it this way, all this different type of
Hmm.
stuff where it's like, and then I was praying about this morning. I was like, Lord, how did you deal with this? Because you was critiqued on every end, and X, Y, and Z and stuff. And then
Good
because
Lord.
the way I feel right now, I feel offended. I feel like defending myself, and all this different type of stuff. Um, and then I just feel led to kind of like just wash my hands and dust my feet off of some like answering people's questions about it.
Can
I'm
I
like, is
ask,
that
what
the
did he say to
judgment?
you?
Yeah,
What
you
did he
got a word for me?
No, what did
What
he
is
say?
it?
You asked the Lord this morning. What did he say to you?
Oh, well, basically, I felt like the confirmation was like basically just um in some moments just might be time to be silent or be still. So for example, because I've been reading a lot of the comments that people have to say about the things that we're sharing and stuff like that, and then but then it's the negative ones that hit, and it's not that many, but the ones that are there, we like, oh, like you attacking me in my testimony right now, that type of thing. So I feel like that's where the dusting my hands off and the dusting my feet off and things of that nature, washing my hands of those situations, to be like, I think I'm probably gonna either stop reading comments completely, which I kind of feel bad about a little bit, because I'm like, there's been a lot of people that have been sharing their testimonies and sharing like how they went through the similar situations and stuff like that, where it's a human trafficking survivor and whatnot. But anywho, so they're dealing with like their stuff, and we want to honor them by saying, hey, we read your comment and we saw it and we're praying for you. But at the same time too, when I'm coming across the other stuff, it's making it be like feeling like punches and hits against our character and things like that. And I'm just like, yeah, I feel like he's just pretty much letting me know that, well, one, stay diligent, one, keep doing what I'm doing, and not let those distractions, stop me from doing the work that's being done here. And then, like I said, when we first started talking, here you come saying you appreciate the channel, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I hear you, okay. But sometimes when stuff happens, it makes you wonder, like, am I doing the right thing? Should I have not named the channel? All these different types of stuff. So I appreciate the confirmations and stuff, and I appreciate you, man, coming here today and sharing your testimony. I feel like you got a lot more to share. So you look, come on back, Mr. Charlebois. Come on now.
It'd be a joy.
Am I still
Oh
saying it
man.
right?
Oh yeah, you said great with emphasis and passion. I
Yes.
love it. Yeah. And
Do you have
so,
family in Louisiana, or is that just
oh
a freak
no, but
thing?
I took a I took a trip to Nolo one time, New Orleans. I was like, man, this place is great. I just love I love the South. I mean,
Yeah.
in I have friends in Georgia, friends in Alabama, and so I do take a few trips a year down there. And I got a lot of clients in North Carolina right now.
Okay.
Just one church. It's like all the business owners from that church are reaching out. It's really
Nice.
cool.
Yeah,
So
but
probably gonna head down there next year and meet with the group.
oh, well,
But
we gotta hear more about your business endeavors and stuff too. So you got to come back, and so we can know
well,
what all you got going on and stuff. But feel free to share with the people how to get these books you were talking about. How to support you in your endeavors and
yeah,
anything else you want to share with us.
I
Feel free.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
The bulk of my endeavors currently are one-on-one coaching, and it's mostly by referral. It fills up pretty quick, but on my website, it's just my name. They probably need to read it in the show notes, especially if they're from Georgia. Charlebois. How do you spell that?
Shut up.
Colt Charlebois, Charlebois, and the first name Colt is like the donkey. I used to call it the horse, but really, it's just if I can carry Christ to the marketplace, I think that's good enough. So.
Yeah.
Colt, coltcharlebois.com, and I have an email opt-in there if you want to receive the beta copy of the book when it comes out. Never Enough. That's going to be a great place to find it. In the book, it's a memoir. I go in just story based. It's not. My belief is that a man doesn't want to hear any advice. Like don't tell me what to do.
Mm,
So I wrote it in a way that they could just see what to do in the story. They could just pull their
yeah.
own, truth out of it. Yeah, so I go in detail about some of the difficult seasons I've been through and how God moved in those spaces and how I learned to trust him and how I learned to abide in him on each day. So it's been a bit of a wild ride, and yeah, certainly more I could share in the future. But you know what? I just thinking about your situation, Miracle, and as we close here, I heard it said once that if you're following the will of the Lord, the world is going to think you're this obnoxious, religious, wild person,
Mm,
right? But the church is going to think you're this heathen pagan, because of what you do. So I
mhm,
heard that and I laughed out loud, like that was a literal LOL for me because I just, isn't that true for all the people we admire? Like they've stood up and they said, "Here's what I really believe." And for me, a big part of my story was meeting, John Eldridge, reading his books on masculinity, and
mm,
the church has a lot to say about John Eldridge, but he just followed what God was leading him in, and has revolutionized masculinity for a lot of men. And so
mm,
we have to stand out in the way God's calling us to, and I have to, I'm a people pleaser by default, by nature, and that's got to be sanctified out of me. So I
mhm.
read Galatians 1:10. You know what Galatians 1:10 says?
What's that?
What's that?
I said, what's that?
Okay, I'm gonna look it up so you can read it verbatim here, because I
Yeah.
tend to paraphrase things in the CIV version. That's the Colt internal version, and it's not accurate. Let me tell you, no one should subscribe to that version of the Bible. Uh, Galatians 1:10. I'll just NIV is up here, but am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God?
That's it.
Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. That's not the way to win people's approval. So, Galatians 1:10 for you, Miracle, for anybody else in that posture of like, I feel attacked by the closest people right now.
Mhm.
The Lord's calling you to an audience of one. An
Yes.
audience of one. That's my word and encouragement for you today, sister.
Thank you. Look, confirmation. Look, come through,
Keep
Lord.
going.
I was reading that verse earlier, and then everything. I say that, and you good, man. Thank you.
Oh,
So I'm all
what an
supposed to wrap it up.
opportunity. Like I could have, this conversation was hard for me to have, but I think important for somebody to hear. And
Mm,
I can't have this at church. I can't
mm.
say this. It just feels too awkward to talk about this kind of stuff at church. But
Wow.
in the safety, you're an incredible host. In the safety of just this dialogue, I felt like some real stuff came out, and hopefully it'll be a blessing to anybody who finds himself in that place.
Yeah, sorry, well, like I said, you're welcome back anytime. And who I don't know now. I like to joke when something comes to me. I say I ain't trying to be no prophet liar or nothing, but maybe you need to get this small group or whatever it is started, brother, because y'all need to have these conversations in the church. Get the men folk together and y'all have these conversations. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Received.
Look, we all got some homework now.
That's good. Christ work. Let's go.
Let's go. Well, I'll stop the conversation there, but thank you so much for coming. Well, hopefully I ruined it. I ruined the end.
I didn't think so. I was on it.
Thank you. Well, if he stops it here, but thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wishing I would have a one night affair.
Thank you so much for watching this GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Mr. Colt for coming and sharing his testimony and his life with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And check out Mr. Colt and the rest of his endeavors. Have a good night.